My name is Lydia Hampson. I'm an exec producer at Sister, and prior to this, I was a producer at Two Brothers Pictures, and I developed and produced Fleabag Series 1 and then exec produced Series 2. And I also made a couple of other things there. And I've just finished making a drama for BBC One called The Following Events Are Based on a Pack of Lies. And I'm now back in development for my next thing. Who knows what it will be?
Brilliant. Okay, so let's start with Fleabag, because I know that everyone will want to know about Fleabag. It was amazing. It was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? And I rewatched a couple just before talking to you now, and it's a joy, isn't it? Was the whole thing a joy?
It was a hard work joy. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was the first. Was it the first series that I made? Yeah, it was the first series that I made. So I was also kind of feeling my way through it as we did it. I think I was learning a lot on the job. So it was quite stressful. I mean, the job is always a bit stressful, but it was quite stressful because I was learning it at the same time. But it was a lot of fun because it happened at a point in my life where I was able just to kind of throw everything into it. I didn't have to, I was a bit fewer, I had less responsibilities than I do now. I was able to do all the late nights and all the early mornings, and all the times that we were tired and teary, and all the times that we were and didn't know what's going to happen next. So it was a lot of fun and a baptism of fire for me.
Yes. And did you always know it was going to be the success that it was?
I don't think I could ever have foreseen just how big, but I definitely knew that because Phoebe had already done the Edinburgh monologue when we were developing it, and that had gone down amazingly, and she'd already had extended runs at Soho Theatre, and then I think it was nominated for an Olivier, or maybe won the Olivier, I'm not sure, but because all the theatre stuff was kind of outside of my remit, but it was doing so well in that world that I sort of felt that if we got this right, that there would be an audience for it, but couldn't have guessed quite the global levels that it would go to.
Which is, of course, kind of good and bad when you're developing, isn't it? Because it's an extra sort of stress and responsibility, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think Series 2 felt like quite an undertaking to revisit, because Series 1 was the play, was the monologue. There wasn't, at that point, there wasn't anything further that we hadn't adapted already. So it was like going back to a blank page, but a blank page with a chapter before that had gone really well that you don't want to mess up in the follow-up. So there was a lot of pressure just from ourselves. I don't think there was no pressure, it wasn't like the channels were piling on us saying, what are you doing and what's happening? It was more just the feeling like that Series 1 had sort of beautifully encapsulated what we wanted it to, and actually how do we do it again?
Yes. And the cast, and how much did you know about the cast before they arrived?
Phoebe had many of them already in her head as people that she definitely knew they were the right people. So Sian Clifford was at drama school with her, and she always knew that Sian should be Claire, the sister. Hugh Skinner, who plays Harry, she already knew that was who Harry should be. The
parents, Olivia
Colman was a late addition, in that Phoebe and Olivia had been in a play together some years before, and Olivia had said, if you write anything, can I be in it, or something along those lines, I'd love to work together. And so in the play, the godmother is more like a voice at the top of the stairs. She's not a fully rounded character at that point in the show's progress. And so Phoebe wrote out that role for the episode 1 read through, which was the first thing that was commissioned by the BBC, and she came in, and I mean, nothing changed. Like that, what she brought on that read through is godmother. She knew exactly who she was from the beginning. So godmother came later, and Bill Patterson we had an amazing casting director and met Bill through VHJ, who cast series 1, and he was I think he felt he was an unusual choice because he is Scottish and he's slightly smaller than Phoebe, and I think we always imagined that Fleabag's mum had been a sort of tall, willowy, dark, brunette, dark kind of, and that they had this amazing partnership put together before he met Godmother. So that, and Bill was amazing. Just came in and stepped into that role, never knowing quite what to, as the character, never quite knowing what to say, always sort of stumbling over his words, and he got it beautifully right from the beginning. He's great.
Yeah, no, they are a gift. They are a big gift. And then, of course, you had the priest in series 2.
Again, Phoebe knew straight from the start that should be Andrew. So I remember calling his agent and saying, "We're doing Fleabag series 2. I think there might be, is Andrew around?" And at that point, we didn't quite know what it was going to, how it would turn out, how that role was coming. But it was always Andrew. And he, again, that partnership and that chemistry was just there from the beginning.
And did you always know that she was going to look at the camera? Was that
yes,
such an important characteristic bit of the series, isn't it?
Yes, she was always going to look at the camera. The point that I came on at, so Two Brothers had optioned the sort of character idea before the show actually went to Edinburgh. And in Edinburgh, obviously, the monologue being spoken directly to the audience meant that the material had evolved that way. And then when I came on board, Phoebe had already written a kind of a version of what the pilot was. And it was already in there that she would speak to camera. I think because it was a way of maintaining that sort of friendship between audience and protagonist, and the intimacy of that relationship, which is so key to the way that she pulls the wool over your eyes and says that everything's fine when it's not, and the idea that we're an observer to things that we shouldn't be, and that immediacy of that relationship. I think, I mean, you can always say everything in hindsight, but it feels like it could only ever have been captured through a direct address. And it just, and I do remember actually when we were filming the pilot, our DOP Laurie Rose, who did the pilot with us, I think there's a point where Phoebe was still figuring out how to find, that, I think when you haven't got a person in front of you like you did, like an audience member, like you had in the theatre, how to find that when you're looking into a black box. And Laurie really sort of helped, just going, "It's your best friend in here," and just sort of pointing to the camera, and that got it.
That's brilliant, actually. That's a very nice note, isn't it? So there was never a thought that it would be narrated, for instance, because some of that stuff you could have got from narration, couldn't you?
There might have been at some point, but certainly the point at which I came in and there was already a pilot in existence on the page had direct address in already.
So what's your role? As in, what is the producer's role? Tell us how you would sum up a producer's role.
I find it slightly varies from job to job, depending on what's needed, but very broadly, I do development producing and production producing, or have done both, and they're two slightly different roles, and some people do one and some people do another, and some people do both. But the development producing aspect for me is working up the script with a writer to a point at which they and we feel that it's really the best possible version of that show, and then going out to broadcasters and finding the right partner to hopefully commission either further material or greenlight the show to then bring it to life. And then once you're up and running, obviously that development doesn't stop. You're developing always the themes, the characters, the storylines, the message, the authorship. You want everything in development to stay super active. Then there's the production part, and they, for me, need to always work hand in hand with the development part. They shouldn't feel like two separate sections. And in production, it's about finding the right team to make that show. So hiring the right director, the right HODs, cinematographer, makeup, hair, costume, location, all of that stuff. And then the shoot, I think before I started producing, the shoot to me always felt like that was the job. And actually I now know that it's, you know, a third of the job at most. And it's the bit that's very physically, I suppose, kind of the most taxing part. You know, it's super early mornings and late nights, and you could be filming anywhere and everywhere, and you're dependent on the weather and the light and all that stuff. But actually the post-production, which is where you go on to after that, I think is a really key bit for producers as well, in understanding you've got all the material now, and you've got the script, but how it ends up is often very different, and it's about finding the right pathway through the original pages, the rushes that you've got in front of you, and the end product, because actually a lot can change in the edit, you know, the order of things. And so I suppose it's a producer's role to always have a bird's eye view on that whole sort of, I put it into thirds, you know, sort of prep, development, production, post, to ensure that you're not lost in the thick of it at any one point, because it's very easy to become very in the weeds on something which you'll have forgotten about in 6 weeks' time.
Great, yes, very good. I'd say that's a top answer of what a producer does. What Fleabag, comedy, drama, sitcom, what's the difference? What would you say Fleabag is? Because it feels a bit like everything's in flux at the moment. Would you say so?
Yes, I think there's been a development from the more rigid system of, these are comedies and they're half an hour long, and these are dramas and they're an hour long, and the dramas cannot be funny in any way, and the comedies must be funny on every page, and they can't be serious. And I think that there is a merging of those two genres, and I think there are probably pros and cons of that. And Fleabag was always written with the jokes first. So Phoebe had a series of, you know, things that had made her laugh, or an anecdote or an idea for something that she would then kind of spin together with, knowing that those moments were sort of bits of gold that she wanted to find in, and then kind of spin the story between them. So the laughs were really important. And I think sometimes comedy drama can be a label by which comedy that maybe isn't doing the best job at making you laugh can get away with going under the label of comedy drama. And actually I think the best comedy drama is like best in class of both of those fields, and I think it sometimes gets unfairly labeled as something that's not quite one or the other, you know, like it's not quite fun enough to be the best comedy, and it's not really got the narrative engine to sustain an hour, for example.
And then you get something really like Succession, which is brilliant at both. Exactly.
So I think sometimes the label can be can kind of just allow people to be a bit lazy about being like, yeah, it's comedy drama. You know, think you need to be really good at both if you're going to be comedy drama. So actually I think it's almost the hardest one to get right.
Yeah, I think so. So you're not going to put a label on Fleabag, or you are?
We never did when we were making it. Right. It just felt more like, I mean, the play existed already, so it wasn't, we sort of always knew the source material. You know, when we put it up for BAFTAs that year, it went into comedy. It was commissioned by the comedy team. You know, I think it's really important that we recognise
it's a scripted comedy.
It's a scripted comedy, and it was, you know, BBC Comedy that got behind it and commissioned it and backed it. And I think that's where it started. It feels to me like it's comedy, but it naturally spun into other areas as Phoebe just wrote out things that she wanted to say, and some of them were funny,
and also I suppose partly it does have some continuing storylines, which is where it, you know, so it's where it at least becomes a modern sitcom moving into something else. But maybe scripted comedy is the best label for all of them these days.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to pigeonhole things, and I know that there's kind of sort of not a course correct, but I know that there's a sort of trend to think like let's sort of recapture comedy and make sure that it's not just being overtaken by drama, saying yeah, we'll just put jokes in it and say it's comedy drama. And that it I think writing a script is really, really, really hard. Writing a story is really, really hard. Writing a story and then being funny in it is a whole new skill. And so I think we should sort of maintain and recognize that comedy is it's it's a gem at the top.
Yes, it's the hardest, isn't it? It is
I
without
think
doubt
so.
the
I find it
hardest and the
impossible.
absolute, yeah, epitome of.
Yeah, and you
So
can't give you can't give notes on it. Be funny is not a note. Can it be funnier is not a note. This didn't make me laugh, not a note. It's so subjective.
Oh,
I
I'm
think
not so
it's
sure about that. I'm not so sure. I think it is kind of helpful to say a little bit about,
I
in
think it's
some
just
ways,
hard.
that's probably why comedy writers like to work in pairs quite a lot, because they can make one another
Yeah,
laugh.
and a sounding board is great. I
Yeah.
find it. I'm just aware that when I give notes, I want them to be sort of helpful or constructive,
more
and just
useful,
saying,
yes.
"Oh, it's not funny." Is like it's not funny to me. Why is it not funny to me? Let's understand that rather
Yes.
than
Yes.
that's not good.
Yes. 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 Yeah. So, top tips for new writers. What would you say to someone who's starting out? What do they have to come to you with? What do you want to see from a new writer? How can they impress you?
Well, I would say lots of practice. Just I think writing dialogue is a really skilled, it's a real skill set that isn't captured by writing treatments or, I can write a treatment or a serious doc, but I couldn't write dialogue. So I think just honing your tone and your handle on characterization comes through just kind of having a crack at writing some pages out, writing some characters, writing a conversation and just seeing what that looks like, I think is a good way to just keep honing how you like to find the rhythm of a script. In terms of approaching, so I mean, it's like I can sort of see us at Sister, it's harder in the sense that, like most companies, we're not able to accept unsolicited scripts. So that's why I think doing what you're doing with Breaking the Glass Ceiling is ideal, because it means that there's a way in that's not beholden to kind of the barriers that of entry that are inevitably out there. But when we do read stuff, because we do run a few sort of schemes every year that are open to everyone, regardless of agents, it's mainly about authorship and tone of voice. So if a script comes in and it's just got a spark to it, or a turn of phrase, or a bite, or an edge, or the way it might capture a feeling is the thing that we're looking for. And there are writers that I think that I could read a script and I could cover up the name, and if I could tell you who wrote it after 10 pages, then that's a really good test of knowing that there's a real authored voice on a project. I think we obviously wouldn't expect that with someone brand new, but the idea that if someone's after 10 years sends me a script and I think I know who this is, then that's a really good test for that sort of authorship, which
and
I
the
suppose is the
opposite, of
key.
course, being those unsolicited scripts that we read quite often, don't we? Which is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's competent, and it will sometimes make you laugh even. But what is it saying? What is it trying to do? Who?
I think,
what?
yeah, I think that's probably the best. Yeah, the hardest thing to achieve is like when there's nothing wrong with a script, it's fine. there's also nothing that's sort of stand out with it either. And I suppose when so few shows get made, so few things, it's an ever decreasing sort of set of circumstances when you're getting something through the hoops to get it made. And I suppose we're looking for, if we're going to make a comedy set in a school, let's just do some very blanket things. If we're doing a comedy set in a school, then what's the specific tone or situation or character that's going to make this one feel like the difference? If we're going to do, for example, I know this is going to hurt, it's not a comedy, it's not an out-and-out comedy, but it's a good example of, if we're going to do a show that's set in a hospital, how do we do it in a way that feels totally different from every other show that's set in a hospital that you might have seen? Very different from the continuing drama version, the Holby, the Casualties, very different from the kind of thriller, very different from the sort of ER version. So
yes, his voice was very strong in it, wasn't it?
A super specific element to it is the thing, I think, that allows a script to be the one that you go forward with.
Yes. And then do they send in a taster tape as well?
No, actually, I've not done that before. That, I think that's not to say if you've got one, sure. It depends, I suppose. If you are a comedy, if you're a writer performer, it doesn't have to be comedy, but if you're a writer performer, sometimes a taster tape might be useful to get across a tone that perhaps you feel will be elevated from what's on the page. And we've had those before through our competition Screenshot, which is run once a year specifically for comedy writer performers. So there are instances, I suppose it's useful, and I guess certainly with like the sort of democratization of the fact it's so expensive to go to Edinburgh, for example, to take a summer off, put on a show, stay in the £1,000 a week flat and all that stuff. So if it's useful and helpful for you to be at home and upload a bit of a talking head or something that's more feasible to accompany a piece of writing, then by all means that's helpful, but it's not an expectation. I would, in most cases, we're just receiving scripts and looking at those.
Do they need an agent?
I think having an agent is helpful. I think it's really important that your agent is someone who understands and is a fan of your work, because I'm aware that the idea that if you meet with an agent and you're just going to grab any, you'll hold on regardless if you think it's not quite the right person, but actually it's an agent, so that's the thing that's most important. I totally understand, and I think you have to take opportunities where they come, but at the same time, if you can hold your sort of nerve and think, I really like this agent's stable of clients, I really like the work these people have done, I wonder who represents them, and that's a good way of sort of looking at the types of people who might also like what you do. And I think it definitely is helpful, because there's a whole sort of section of the industry that is all about the deals that can be struck, and all the contractual stuff is a whole other skill set that you don't need to sort of worry about if you've got someone handling that for you. But I think it's important that it's the right, it's someone who you feel kind of can represent you for you, and isn't sort of just going, well, they'll just do that, yeah, fine. Like, I think you want someone who you feel confident and comfortable, if they're going to battle, that you're like, yeah, that's my person, I want to be on their team. So they are, they're great for that. And I think there's some brilliant agents out there. I know lots of them, actually. And the other thing is, it is trickier to get scripts read without an agent, and that's, there's the boring legalities of that most companies aren't legally able to read unsolicited scripts, because ideas come up, they're already in development. It can be a tricky sort of grey legal area. However, that's why I think at Sister, for example, we run the screenshot competition once a year, which is specifically for comedy writer performers. Doesn't matter if you've got an agent or not, anyone can enter, and that's to find a platform. It was born out of the COVID years when Edinburgh Fringe didn't run, and it's an opportunity for writer performers to come forward in front of an amazing panel of, I think this year one of the judges is a commissioner at HBO, and we've had head of comedy at Channel 4 and Lolly Anaphobia and Rosie Jones are judges, and it's a great way to kind of get your work seen. So that's one example of a scheme that we do, and lots of companies do schemes that are similar or to the same effect that don't require agents. But I think long term, if you are keen to carve out a career in, as a comedy writer, an agent, a good agent on your side is a good thing.
Lydia, thank you. Thank you so much.
That wasn't
really,
too...
no, clear, inspiring.
Good.
Excellent. Thank you.
Oh, good. All right. Thanks, Jane.